I'm not saying everyone's beautiful. I just told you Atlanta's clapped. I never said everyone's beautiful. I just said I'm not seeing anybody's here.
I've been waiting an entire week to record a video on the Shits and Gigs podcast because I think that this is one of the reasons why microphone prices should be absolutely through the roof. It takes years upon years to build such a massive audience with a dedicated fan base of loyal fans who are with you lock and step no matter what platform you go to. And sort of like a regular job, your digital footprint follows you wherever you go. It never goes away. It's accessible by anybody, so you're gonna have to live with the consequences of your actions. Now, the Shits and Gigs podcast is an uber popular podcast where a lot of women watch it. It has a very, very strong female fan base. And guys watch it too, but this is one of the examples where women are like, you know what? These guys can have a mic. Because trust me, as somebody who has a podcast, telling other women that you have a podcast is a total turnoff because they automatically associate you with Kevin Samuels or the Whatever podcast or Fresh and Fit or whatever the case may be. But no, these guys are good to go in the women demographic because they have this appearance of being an ally. Oh man. Unfortunately for them, they had to cross the pond and come on a US tour where their dating preferences got brought to the mainstream and people are upset as about it. They went on a 6-week US tour where they stopped at the Poor Minds podcast where they had these things to say about Atlanta.
In Atlanta, I've seen the least baddies so far.
Oh.
Yeah. We've still got a couple days. Maybe we'll find out. But yeah. I've seen like 2 or 3.
Hey, but what is y'all's type though?
Bad is the type.
Facts.
It matters how you own it. It can be a skinny girl who wears the out of being a skinny girl. And then you got a thick thing who just owns the out of being a thick thing. It's bad is bad is bad.
Now, this is where the conversation starts to get tricky. As an Atlanta native, I only have one comment and one comment only on somebody saying that I haven't seen a lot of bad women in Atlanta. And it's you don't like black women. And let me say this, there is no problem with that. I don't expect somebody who's half Irish and half Jamaican growing up in the UK to have this affinity towards black women. Trust me, that is not what I've come here to do. But the other dark-skinned gentleman is up for questioning, but let me deep dive. The Metro Atlanta area is one of the biggest areas in the US that has the highest density of African-American people. We're talking at least top 5 here, but really like top 3 conversations. So a lot of people, myself including, think that the guys from the Shits and Gigs podcast came over here, saw the black Mecca, what a lot of people would call the Wakanda of the United States, and saw how many black women were here and thought that there were no baddies. That was a sign that they just don't like black women. Even that weak ass explanation they gave made me and Lex from the Poor Minds podcast have an agreement.
That's a PR answer. They're all beautiful if you have.
I'm not saying everyone's beautiful. I just told you Atlanta's clapped.
Atlanta has a lot of transplants. So a lot of the people that live here, like you rarely run into people when you're out and stuff that are from Atlanta.
You see, I would probably agree with them. Now, there are parts of Atlanta that you can go that are made of predominantly white people, but ultimately, I think that this is a jab at a lot of black people in the conversation, seeing that this is the black Mecca. And what Drea said in the conversation also makes me think that there's something wrong with these guys just a little bit, because right, Atlanta is the home of the transplant. There are a lot of people that aren't from the city of Atlanta originally in Atlanta. There are black people that flock all over the world that come to Atlanta in order to live and exist because they call it the black Mecca for a reason. It's a place where black people generally thrive. Now, with that being said, this was the first shovel in the dirt that had the Shits and Gigs podcast digging a hole in which they would ultimately end up burying themselves. Because I get it. Preferences are preferences. But one thing that I like to say, when that first piece fits into another piece, that puzzle makes a pattern, I don't even know what I'm really trying to say. Ultimately, these guys have a past, and it started to resurface because people started digging up their clips to kind of solidify the fact that these guys do not like black women.
What is the black girlfriend effect?
A guy who's had a black girlfriend, all of a sudden he's got buzz cut, like clean shape up.
They shave their hair because they start losing it. Because they're so stressed being around this black girl complaining about shit all the fucking time. That's why they gotta shave their hair.
Nah, bro. White guys with black girlfriends, they
grow a beard
because
there's more cushion when they get slapped the fuck out of. Do you guys have you ever had black girlfriends?
Yeah.
Have you ever had white girls?
Yeah.
Oh wow. Okay. What's your favorite?
Now, we're going to get into Andrew Schultz here in a second because, first of all, I think he has a mustache that will make his ancestors question him and what he believes in. But on his podcast, he primes the Shits and Gigs guys up to make the same exact mistake or do something completely different that would make people say, okay, that was just a one-off. It is jokes. They are clear of the black women hating allegations. And they take advantage of that, right?
We love them all.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
We love them all.
Yeah.
That means white.
Yo, who gets
Now, mind you, preferences can be preferences, jokes can be jokes, but kind of like I alluded to earlier, you got one puzzle piece over here, another puzzle piece over here, a third puzzle piece down here, and it's making this puzzle that says that you do not like a certain demographic of woman. Ultimately, it's kind of disgusting because a lot of the people that you are disparaging seem to be fans of your content. Now, we don't have their clear demographic breakdown, but I can only assume that one black man and one mixed man would have some sort of pie chart that would mostly be people that are black, identify as some sort of black, whether it be African, African American, etc., etc. And then based off of the engagement that they get on their platform, I would go ahead and say that they have a pretty big women audience. But a lot of them did not take a liking to them getting on different people's platforms and not standing up for them, not representing them, disparaging them at any given moment, even if it was a joke that wasn't funny or was funny, they just never stood up for them.
It was three. What is it? Yoruba, Igbo, and then Hausa. Yeah. What's the one? Who are the smart ones?
I would say Yorubas.
Yoruba. And then who are like the conniving ones?
I can't speak on that.
I can't speak on that. That's right. Yoruba's like, we're educated, we're going to school. The Hausa are the lazy ones.
According to you.
And then Igbo is what? They're the ones that are always, they got the scams. They're the greatest scammers in history.
According to you, bro.
There's no truth to this at all? What is the stereotype? We're just speaking about like stereotypes.
I would say stereotypically Nigerians as a whole are scammers.
Can I tell you?
I wouldn't like.
Going up on a man's podcast who just so happens to have a mustache that would disappoint his ancestors, perpetuating stereotypes that would make your ancestors themselves look pretty doggone bad. Now, I get that he tried to deflect. I get that there was a dismissal here and there, but God, it does not look good in the light when you're allowing only one person, which it only seems to be one person in these clips initiating these things. But these have got to be one-offs. I cannot believe that these guys would sit here and disrespect black women on a black women platform, black people as a whole on another person's platform seemingly. This is only isolated incidents. These can't be things that happen on a regular basis, right?
And this girl that I was fucking with at the time, she wants mixed race kids, like, so she wants a black man. That's all she goes for. And there's this girl that she used to watch on a TV show who was obviously black. She was like, oh, I wish I was her. She kept on saying, oh, I wish I was black. I wish I was black. I'm thinking,
Jesus Christ.
What?
For starters, if you was black, you wouldn't be getting any black men. So I'm just saying. You're white, fam.
You're white.
You're winning.
You're just out here white, just with all the rights to you.
Like, what is greener that you're thinking, I'm missing out?
I still fucked her.
Yeah.
I've been fucking her.
No, brothers, no! Again! Many people were critical of these things, and I gotta say that I kind of agree with them. Now, I get it. Everybody puts everything under the umbrella of comedy, and I think that comedy is the laziest umbrella to put things under. Comedy is the lowest form of entertainment. Anything can be funny to anybody, and with that being said, you can find something that you said that potentially could be offensive or not funny or disgusting or whatever, and put it in front of enough people until you find the person that thinks that it is funny. Therefore, it gives you this scapegoat in order to say, oh, what I said is justifiable, or what I said is okay because it's funny, right? I got a laugh out of it. But ultimately, no. You see, you can be tone deaf, you can be insensitive, you can be downright disrespectful to a lot of people, and you using the whole idea that, oh, this is comedic genius, somebody laughed at it, should not be an excuse for you to say downright dirty and disrespectful things. And look, there may be some world in which we would give these guys some sort of pass as a one-off situation, but it seems like they have a continued pattern of self-hatred that is displayed on their own podcast. But Omar, they themselves are black people. Why can't this just be an incident of them drawing on their own experiences in order to make some sort of comedic efforts in order to entertain an audience? Well, partially nasally, Omar, is because their audience is saying that this isn't funny. What they're doing is going on different platforms, exposing themselves to a plethora of different people who aren't a part of their core audiences and getting these snippets of them and saying, hey, these guys are disgusting. Let me do a deeper dive into how they're such a bigger platform. It's gone to a mainstream sphere where a lot of people can criticize them. To be honest with you, if you think self-hatred and disparaging comments are funny, like if that seems to be the crux of who you are or your identity, then I got news for you, buddy. You are not funny. If you don't like black women, if you don't like white women, if you don't like trans people, if you don't like gay people, these things can be fine, I guess. Some of them are preferences, some of them are just obias disguised as comedic genius. But don't make it seem like we're crazy for calling you out when you have the phobia or the belief or the disgust and say that, hey, I'm just telling a joke. No, that's not how these things work. When I saw this incident, I instantly thought of Dave Chappelle and his transgender jokes. Dave Chappelle went on Netflix special after Netflix special after Netflix special where he called out transgender people and had his own comedic spin on it that everybody thought was so intelligent and so insightful because it was Dave Chappelle. Well, after the 4th, 5th, 6th, 20th joke of the transgender people that Dave Chappelle got off with them being the butt of the joke, I'm not gonna lie, there were a great amount of people who thought to themselves, yeah, it's almost like you're kicking a dead horse and you're getting off these right-wing conservative talking points. And if that's the audience that you're pitching to, hey, you're gonna get a laugh somewhere. But at some point, you're gonna come off as some crotchety old man and not the genius that people thought you were when you were making the Chappelle show. It's no longer shits and gigs. It's no longer for the laughs. It's just hatred with a microphone and a name behind it that has comedy attached to it, and you're trying to get it off and it's not working in 2024.
We're on the dance floor and there was a chick that was looking good, squeezed a bit of bottom flesh, and the guy...
The thing that's jarring for me about that video is like the casualness at which he says it, but he's just like, yeah, I walked up to a girl and I grabbed her ass. That's sexual assault. He's literally telling a story about how he walked up to someone and grabbed them in front of their boyfriend. It's the men who will laugh and joke about this kind of thing who will end up being the ones to do it. And the reason they laugh and joke about it is to normalize it.
Look, you can only put so much underneath the umbrella of comedy, especially when you're doing it at other people's expenses. Some of this stuff, a lot of this stuff, look, all of this stuff isn't funny. I'm not gonna lie to you. Apparently, the Shits and Gigs podcast doesn't even make the most funny stories. They take other people's shared experiences, their stories, Reddit posts, whatever, read them on their platform and get the laughs out of it. And look, I get it. That can be funny at times, but we really gotta decipher who is funny, who's not funny, who is entertaining, who's not entertaining. And these guys who have these sorts of patterns and backgrounds, I would not say are funny at all. Now, after the incident, naturally, these guys were sweating profusely. Their audiences, the new eyes that were getting on them, looked at them in total disgust, as they should. So naturally, they're gonna put out an apology.
There were a few jokes made that were incredibly inappropriate. One specifically pertaining to black women. Andrew was making a frankly like racist joke and we were laughing at it. That obviously there's just literally no excuse. When you're in those situations, you look at it through a lens of like, bro, if it was me, I promise you I'll stand up, I'll kick them cameras down, I'll smack homeboy in the face. But when you're in there, you're in shock.
You're in shock and all you want to do is move on.
Yeah.
Now, the apology in a vacuum may have seemed like a great idea, of course. You gotta save face in these situations. And I would love to give the brothers some sort of applause for that because they did give a reasonable excuse as to why they did the things that they did. Psych, I'm not giving them a damn thing because everything about these guys does not happen in a vacuum. It is a pattern. After they did their apology, they went and scrubbed 100 earlier episodes from their podcast. Now, somebody will probably ask, why is that such a big deal? Well, it's a big deal because they knew people were going on their backtracking tour and they knew that they said nasty things. And again, one episode or two wouldn't matter, but 100 episodes that you felt the need to delete from your catalog is a crazy concept. Think about that from any other entertainer, creative perspective, artist, or whatever. Do you ever see an artist delete 100 songs from their catalog? An author delete 100 books from their catalog? A painter delete 100 paintings from their repertoire? People would look at them as a crazy person. This is an example of hiding evidence and it's lacking true accountability. If anything, you should be forthcoming with what's going on so when people find it, they are not totally blindsided. But you doing this under the heat of the moment, saying, ooh, can I get this off, as if nobody would see, was not only stupid, but really showed who you are as people. You're babies. Hell, you're birds at this point. You keep flying over and past these situations instead of spearheading them and addressing them. And speaking of flying past the accountability, ducking, dodging, and evading and all those things, you only look stupider in the light because Andrew Schultz, the man that I gotta give a little bit of praise and applause for, came out and outed you for the bullshit apology that you did.
They had shit that they asked to take out the episode. You know what they didn't ask to take out?
Your racist slander.
They had shit. Their producer, whatever, was like, hey, we really think that's inappropriate. We like to take that out. But with that joke about the black women, nothing really seemed, the fight or flight wasn't really there.
They literally walked in your trap, took over your trap, and proved you to be the sellouts that you are. Everybody knows that when you do these pre-recorded things, these podcasts, you have multiple takes. You have the opportunity after to tell what things need to be edited, what things need to be corrected, stopped, fixed, do it in post or whatever the case may be. But apparently you did not do that in this instance. You took the opportunity to do it in other instances, but not this one. Why? Because that's how you feel. That's who you are. Even when given a second chance, you still prove to be a dickhead.
James and Fuhad are receiving backlash after they were on a podcast with Andrew Schultz and they nervously laughed at some jokes he made about black women. Basically, people are saying that they should have protected black women more and stood up for them instead of just sitting there laughing at the jokes. But this double standard is just not making much sense to me. A week ago, it was perfectly fine for Angel Reese and all these other black women to not protect black men and talk about how they'd be happier with a white man.
Now, this TikTok user almost brought up a good point if he wasn't such a dumbass. I wouldn't define this type of laughter as some sort of nervous laughter in the situation. I don't know if people saw that video that Angel Reese reposted last week about this black woman being fed up with black men, so you gotta escape to get a white man or whatever the case may be, but that video was also dog shit and horse water. Horse shit and dog water? Whatever it was trash. She should be reprimanded. That's not something that should be put on the internet. People should be protecting people, full stop. Black women should protect black men should protect black women at all costs. That's just my personal belief, and I know everybody doesn't subscribe to that, but I'm here to say I do. But even greater than that, participating in this, well, they did it so I can do it too, does nothing for the conversation but further the divide. Be the person that doesn't engage with it or criticizes both of it. And I would take this Twitter user more seriously if he was criticizing both ends of the spectrum equally, but to pit them both against each other and say, hey, make a decision between these two is stupid. Now, I agree, Angel Reese shouldn't have did that, and it does look bad on her. That is a very shameful thing that she did, and she should be reprimanded and talked to about that. I think what adds this extra level of cinnamon spice and none of that was nice to the Shits and Gigs podcast is because I know a lot of black women consume their content along with black men. They portrayed themselves to be an equal opportunist podcast and not something that was just for one thing. I'm not saying that Angel Reese didn't play basketball for the men, but a lot of her content is geared to and catered towards just women. She has never posed to be some sort of ally. I don't believe that to be the case. But I also do not have this pattern of Angel Reese shaming and shitting on black men as I do for the Shits and Gigs podcast. I can't have sympathy for those guys. I don't really have sympathy for Angel Reese either, but I definitely don't have sympathy for these grown-ass men saying these things and brushing it off as comedy year in and year out. Look, they've got a lot of damage control to do, but I highly advise people to take people for who they are. We've seen YouTubers destroy their catalogs and their audiences before, like The Watcher early this year when they said they were going to put everything behind the paywall, and I still think that they're trying to bounce back from that situation. So maybe these guys take a hit and bounce back. I don't know. It would be pretty hard for me to believe that they can. Ultimately though, if you have a large female or male audience, don't bash them. I think it's as simple as that. I know I said the most transformational thing today, but boy, oh boy, those guys are jackasses.